Hiya, I hope you're keeping well. I am just about to create a smoky eye look and share a load of smoky eye tips. As you can see, I've already started. That's why my makeup looks a bit half done. So before we go any further, if you want to press pause, go and grab a pencil, eyeliner, your eyeshadow brushes, a few eyeshadows, and you could do it along with me. Last night I was on a Zoom call with Vincent Ford, who's the global makeup artist for NARS, and he taught us so many great tips, so I'm essentially gonna just rehash those with you. Just quickly, I've already got on a little bit of CC cream. I've got some of David Horn's Glam Base Illuminating Wheel. I've got on some NARS pencil black liner in the waterline just to save some time. And my first step is going to be, this is all about building a smoky eye, by the way, that wears really well and smudges out nicely. So I'm going to start with the high pigment long wear eyeliner. This is in like a bronzy brown, you know, I love those kinds of colours. And I'm going to take this along this lash line. And once I've got it on, I'm going to buff it out. And this is going to mark kind of the base of the smoky eye. So one of the things he said that was so interesting was he was saying if you want to flick it out at the ends, which is what I'm going to do here, he said don't go further than the edge of that brow. Such a good way of thinking of it. So I've taken it that far and I'm just going to take a little smudgy brush and soften the edge of that liner. To be honest, as we were going along, Vincent's tips were so good that at each step I was kind of thinking, I wouldn't mind if I left the makeup here. This is a Pixie, it just says EO3 on it. I'm not sure if that is the brush name. But anyway, I'm taking this right the way across and just creating a smudge up the lid so that you can see it's given it that kind of smoulder. The first tip I was meant to do, which I've completely forgotten, which we'll do in a moment. It's okay because we're not using any shadows yet. But the first tip he suggested was, you know, the kind of baking technique, once you've put your concealer on, of putting some powder under the waterline and allowing it to bake. He basically suggests using that as your first step because when we come to put our shadows on, if anything drops down, he said it's much easier to sweep away any drop down once you are just sweeping it off that powdered edge. So I'm going to do that as well before I go anywhere near my palette. So just taking the time to soften the edge of that liner so that we've got a nice smudgy finish. It's not 100% even, but I'm going to build over the top of it so I'm not too fussed. Lovely. Now, so before I do another thing, I've got a little bit of, this is Hourglass Veil powder. I've got a nice big fluffy brush. Don't ask me about that brush because I've had it for years. I just remember it was really quite cheap. I've got a feeling it might have been from Crown brushes. But I'm going to put slightly more powder than feels natural under these eyes just to catch any drop down. Okay, so the palette I'm going to go in with, this is the NARS Extreme Effects. And there's a mixture of shimmers and mattes. So first of all, I'm going to take one of the mattes. If you grab any matte that you've got there, I'm going to go with this kind of smoky red. And I'm going to pick it up using a fluffy brush. And he recommended that you always pat the product using the back of your hand into the brush. And if you can see, I don't know if you can, if this is close up enough, he basically said that way you're going to get less drop down because you've packed it in before you've gone anywhere near your eyes. And he recommended to take this just above the crease So I'm going to buff this in. And the nice thing about these tips and things is they will work with any kind of eyeshadow palette that you have and any colours. Just take the principle of the fact that this is a matte shade as opposed to thinking you have to use like a maroony red. So I'm going to load the brush up again and do the same on the other side. Do you know something? Yesterday, before I knew what we were going to do on this call, I should have done it today actually, I'd put on like a bright blue liner on the water line and along the lash line, and the blue gave this like a real kind of 70s finish. It looked lovely. Okay, so I've taken that one a bit higher, so I'm going to match them up. Just gently buff that matte shade. I'm going to really gently take it out to those edges a little bit also, just using the excess of what's on that brush. And then he gave us such a good tip, which was, I'm going to take a clean brush just to show you, but he said if you ever go too high, just take some of that setting powder again and use that to soften the edges. I've never heard that tip before, but it really did help. Rather than just using a clean brush, having that extra bit of product just helps to smooth everything out. So what did he do next? I'm going to take a tiny bit of that brown under the lash line as well. I'm going to tickle it right in. I already put my black in the waterline just to save some time, and I thought it's not really a step that you'd need to see a technique for, so I hope you don't mind, because you know that these videos only seem to last for 15 minutes. I'm going to take a clean pencil brush and just buff that out ever so slightly. And do the same on both sides. And then I'm going to take some of that matte shade and take that under that waterline as well. Again, I'm patting it in to the brush so that I'm not going to get any drop down. Oh, I've got something in my eye there, I've blinked it away. Just going to take that along. He also had a really great tip. He said, if you have a slightly more hooded eye shape, you may wish for a smoky eye to really put the majority of your pop of colour under that waterline so that it catches. Okay, so bottoms are on. I'm going to put a tiny bit more of that matte shade just to really build the intensity along the lid and then soften through the edges. You can see how that now, I'm going to go in with that clean blending brush. You can see how that has created more of an intense finish on the lid that blurs out into a softer socket. How am I doing for time? I've got 5 minutes, I'll be okay. I'm going to do the same on this side. Just build that lid colour ever so slightly and buff out the edges. And again, the nice thing about this is if it's a bit smudgy, that's what we like. We're going for something nice and grungy here. Oh, lovely. Okay, that's feeling nice. And then what we're going to do now, if you want to grab one of your shimmer shades, rather than using any brushes, I'm going to go in with this shade here, which if you've been watching my videos for a while, it's so like Antiqued from MAC, which is my favourite shadow of all time. I'm going to take it just on my ring finger. These kinds of shimmers are often a little bit easier to work with so that you don't get any drop down when you go in with the finger. And I'm just going to press that through the centre of the eye to give a little hit of something when it catches the light. There we go. So my little antique shade is on. I'm just going to clean my hands before I get this all over my face. Now, the next thing I'm going to take, this is kind of like a pressed glitter, I would say. A little bit of black. Because it's a pressed glitter and it's more of a metallic kind of finish, this will almost give a bit of a wet look to the lash line. And I'm going to take a little bit of this just along this outer lash line. Again, not focusing too much on this being neat and tidy. My main concern is really building the depth and definition and smokiness. Following that line that I almost created originally. So we've got that smokiness. And then, so clever how he described this. This is the NARS Climax Extreme. Now, I feel like everyone, every 5 minutes, is bringing out a new mascara at the moment. There are so many to keep up with. But what I will say, for me personally, the Climax Extreme is worlds apart from the original Climax mascara. Original Climax, I found, was really good for, that needs a bit of blending. Really good for separation, fanning the lashes, something really to create like a real fluttery finish. This is volume, this is a bit of me. But what he said was, he was like explaining how he loves wispy false lashes, and that to get that finish, you want all of the volume at the root and then really gentle on the ends of the lashes. So he said, rather than pulling it through and going in like this, place the mascara at the root and do this kind of left to right motion like you do when you're brushing your teeth. So I am literally going to wriggle this mascara, first of all, a few times at the root. I'm obviously going to have to tickle a little bit in these tiny inner corners to get those inner hairs. But before I do anything through the ends of those lashes, I am just going to build volume. So I've wriggled that a few times. Now I'll do my brush through so that I've almost got more product at the root and then just a softer finish at the ends. Again, that is such a great tip that you could use with any mascara. I love showing you, new bits in these videos, just so that you've got an idea of, if you've been looking at something, what's it like. But you can always just use all of the tips for whatever you've already got at home. So please never think that I'm saying you need this one specific thing. These are all transferable little tips. So, there we go. I really love that shape. I feel like it's the kind of, let me just move that. I feel like it's the kind of smoky eye look that if you, the night was going on, you haven't touched up your makeup, it's gone a bit smudgy, it's only going to look nicer. I never thought a bright red would feel so wearable. And I just really enjoyed the tutorial. So I hope you did. Any other products that you want to see or techniques that you want to learn, let me know. Do have a look at Vincent. His name is Vincent Ford. He is the most soothing, calming makeup artist to watch. Honestly, I think that's why it all went in so much, because he was just so delicate and soft with his touch that the next thing the eyes were done and you almost wondered how he'd done it because it was so gentle. But I'll put all of the links to the products and his page and everything in the description box, and I'll look forward to hearing what you think and speaking to you soon.